Very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Hackett, member of marketing team at Zycus, would like to welcome you all for today's webinar on creating value with integrated contract management. I'd like to brief you in a minute about Zycus. Zycus is a leading global provider of complete source-to-pay suite of procurement performance solutions. Our comprehensive product portfolio includes application for both the operational and the strategic aspects of procurement, that is e-procurement, e-invoicing, spend analytics, electronic sourcing, contract management, supplier management, financial savings management, request management, and project management. Our spirit of innovation and our passion to help procurement create greater business impact are reflected among the hundreds of procurement solution deployments that we have taken over the years. We are proud to have our clients some of the best of breed companies across verticals like manufacturing, automotive, banking and finance, oil and gas, food processing, electronics and telecommunication, chemicals, health and pharma, and finally education. I'd like to introduce you to our today's speaker, Melanie Flores, who leads the Hackett Group Procurement and P2P advisory practice in MEA region. She is a diversified professional with over 20 years of experience in management consulting and benchmarking. Prior to joining Hackett, Melanie has spent 13 years supporting Fortune 500 companies in Europe and America in their procurement transformation effort. During her tenure, she led the procurement operating model, design engagements, process optimization, strategic sourcing, and operational strategies implementation. Today, Ms. Flores works together with procurement senior executives, giving advice into proven and emerging organizational and process best practices from source to settle, supports Hackett benchmarking operations, and actively contributes to the Hackett procurement leading research. Before we move on to, before I give on the baton to Melanie, I'd just like to give you a few housekeeping instructions. At any given point in time, if you have any questions, please feel free to post them on the chat box on the right-hand side corner of your screen. This is a 40 minutes webinar, out of which last 5 to 8 minutes would be reserved for your questions. That's it from my side. Over to you, Melanie.
Thank you very much, Hackett, and good afternoon to everyone. The objective of today's session, and thank you again to the Zycus team for inviting us to talk to you today around contract management, is looking at the value that can be created, and as well as what are some of the challenges that organizations see and what are the best practices. So let me very briefly talk to you for some of those that might not be familiar with the Hackett Group. Who we are an advisor organization. We are well known because of our benchmarking capabilities, and this is quite relevant to some of the material that I'm going to be showing to you. We define what world-class performance is in the procurement space. We also do this in other functions, but obviously the most important one and relevant for today is procurement. So we look at efficiency and effectiveness metrics and determine, based exclusively on performance, what are the top quartile performance in both dimensions, and we define what world-class is based on that. So I think this is important because I'm going to be showing you some data that you might question, what the definition behind world-class. And as I said, we do a lot of, and it's core of what we do in terms of the benchmarking, the procurement function. We also help organizations closing the gaps once they have identified what the gaps are in terms of the performance that they would like to achieve and where they are, and we help them closing those gaps with different models. I'm part of the advisor organization, as Hackett mentioned today, and I'm really very glad to take you some of the the insights that we have gained. It is not enough to be, to go through all the different topics around contract management and how this can create value and how the integration is important in a couple of minutes, but I'm going to try to do my best, and please feel free to reach out to me as well, send us questions for today and afterwards as well. So let me take you through, to start on the content on the presentation. And we talk about contract management, and I think there are very well-known issues that companies know and they have seen. But the question is always, when do you know that you really have to do something? What is the burning platform around that? And some of the issues and some of the symptoms that we have seen from many companies are still there, and they are well known. And I think some of you, hopefully not all of them, might be familiar. And the idea is to make sure that there is a solution in place. And I'm talking about solution. I'm not referring to particular technology, but it's a comprehensive solution that enables organizations to really get the value expected, and improve some of the processes in order to get to efficiency, etc., around contract management. So one of the typical areas, and something that we hear quite a lot, is when we have some contracts that are out of date, but we still have a relationship with suppliers, and kind of this continues without the appropriate legal recourse that should be in place. And this might be something that obviously is not happening for all contracts, but it is one of the typical things that we hear from organizations where it's clear that there's something that needs to be addressed from a contract management point of view. And another one that, again, hopefully not many of you have, is that there are some exclusive contracts with suppliers with automatic renewals, and there is no periodic, formal review to look into those. They are just running. And sometimes it's difficult to get to see them, or to have the time to look at it, at least to know that there are some of those that it is the case. So this, as you can imagine, this might have both of the topics an impact in terms of the commitments that you have. And coming to the commitment point, it is one of the most frequent ones. There's no consolidated view of our contractual commitments in the organization. We have a view in terms of what's corporate procurement, or we have a view in terms of the most relevant regions, or at least some countries, but it's not a consolidated view in terms of what those are, and this again can definitely increase your risk. Other issues that we hear, or other of the symptoms that we hear, is not able to identify missing contracts. I don't know how many times we hear, well, we actually had to ask the supplier for the contract because we were not able to find it, which is really not only giving not a great image to the supplier, it's showing some of the issues that are happening around the contract management practice. And inefficient cross-departmental access to contracts. So contract management is an area that is in the middle of different, or is touching different areas within an organization. And it is important, it can create a lot of issues if there's an inefficient access to those. So this is also some of the issues that might bring. And together with this, there is no really ability to analyze supplier terms and all the information around the commitments that we have with our suppliers, make comparisons to what we have done in the past with the current, supplier, but potentially with previous suppliers in that area. And important issue, and incomplete contracts. I think probably this is the one that I hear the most. We have some, the first contract, but then we make some amendments, and then we are not really having all the information that it should be as part of the contract. and they are not widely disseminated to the key stakeholders that potentially need to have a word to say, need to review something, it might be legal, it might be the business, but there is not a widely disseminated to all key stakeholders. This is clearly having an important link to the access to those contracts, and in general tends to be a very manual process. Now, many organizations have been doing something around putting a repository to create a view of the contract and solve some of these issues. But as you can see, there is going beyond having contracts in only one place as such. And what is happening, if you think of the source-to-pay process, and I just included just some boxes, whatever the details of the entire end-to-end source-to-pay process is, some of those issues that we see here, and then if you are facing some of those, well, this is impacting the efficiency and the effectiveness of the entire source-to-pay process. It's impacting the cost of the processing of the entire end-to-end process, is increasing cycle times in some of the areas, definitely in the contract management, but it might impact some others as well. And it's potentially minimizing the opportunities that you might have even from a sourcing point of view, and it's increasing risk. So some of these definitely might increase the risk that you have in the organization. So these are, again, only some of the areas where we see that the companies are struggling with, and there is an opportunity to do something. So the burning platform definitely is there for many organizations. Now, let me just very briefly define the contract life cycle, because something that we have come across is a different definition in terms of the problems that we are trying to solve, and what is contract management and what is the contract life cycle, what it starts and what it ends. And the purpose of this slide is to show you some of the most common steps. We would be able to add more steps or take some of these steps according to the details that we want to go through, but it's pretty much about defining the requirements, negotiating with suppliers, negotiating the contract with the selected supplier, awarding the contract, managing the life of the contract, and finally closing the contract. So there are a number of steps, and if you go through these, obviously you know that there are many stakeholders involved internally, and with suppliers, and potentially with some different people within their supplier, with the legal team, or the sales team that is working with you, etc. So there are many stakeholders involved, and it might span in an important long period of time the entire life cycle. So I just highlighted some of the common involvement of the main stakeholders. It might be different at different organizations, but typically you have the business stakeholders as part of hopefully defining the requirements, providing details of the requirements, and obviously they tend to manage in many cases the contracts during the life of the contract, and obviously as part of the closing of the contract, not the management or not the administration type of activities, but it's about managing the contract. Procurement tends to hopefully be involved in the defining of the requirements, definitely much more involved in the negotiation, in the contract piece, the awarding, and potentially what many organizations getting not that involved in terms of managing the contract as such, and not that many in terms of closing the contract, which might also be might create some issues. And legal, and I'm just talking about the three main stakeholders, definitely there might be more depending on the industry that you are in, but also the spend categories and the type of contract that you are putting in place. That these are the common ones, and you have legal that might be more focused in some of those areas. So there is a different, obviously for different at different companies, different processes, these might be looking different. I'm not saying that this is definitely the best practice. Their involvement of the different stakeholders should not necessarily follow this. There are some other best practices around it, but this is just to show the complexity of the entire life cycle, how you need to manage how the different stakeholders might be interacting and might have some needs to be addressed. So if we think about we saw some of the issues that organizations have and the potential risks that you are going into because issues in the way that you are managing this life cycle of the contract. At the same time, we see that the most advanced organizations are trying to look for solutions to address the issues in contract management, also issues in other areas that they might have. But in particular, the most advanced ones, the ones I was referring to, such as world-class, so really the top quartile in efficiency and in effectiveness. But also other companies are trying to find solutions that enable them to leverage the opportunities that are available in the market, so outside of the organizations, but also inside. And there are many things that are happening nowadays, and obviously all of you are aware of the digitalization, the transformation that functions and processes are going through. And there are very interesting and exciting things that can be done. At the same time, it's a good time to work on those because there is a lot of pressure for the procurement function, but because companies are also feeling the pressure of being able to be more responsive. So world-class procurement organizations are definitely looking into the digital revolution and what is available there, and from a source to pay, think about automation. And the reason why they are doing this is obviously because they want to be more agile, more responsive to their internal stakeholders, and more efficient at the same time. And one of the important points is increasing procurement agility, which has to do with be able to reduce your cycle times. And so this is an important point, and this is not only valid for contract management; it's valid for everything that the procurement function, all the activities that they have. It is as well in the focus, raising awareness on the need to control access to data. In this interconnected world that we are living, data is very important, and there are sensitive data, so there are some controls that need to be in place. And we are, facing more and more, enforcement and issues around regulatory compliance and what are the risks that might come from there. So they are also reacting to that. So it's not only there are a lot of good things out there, which has to do with the last point that I'm making in the slide around what are the models that software as a service, fully, transforming, utilizing digitalization opportunities that are out there. It's also about the controls that are required, putting in place risk management programs that help us or help human functions to take the advantage and fully leverage the opportunities available, but still be compliant, understand that there are some data. Sensitive data, there might be some risk associated with some of the areas, and doing this properly. So the most advanced organizations are definitely looking into that, and contract management is just one of the areas. So if you think about the opportunities around this digitalization, and we look at the source-to-pay software landscape, and I'm talking about, I'm not talking about a particular organization, so a particular company, a particular functionality provided by specific vendors. It is really about the entire source-to-pay landscape, if you will. You see your spend analysis, your sourcing, your procurement, e-procurement, invoicing, etc. You see that contract life cycle management is right at the middle. it is very important to have an integrated approach. If you recall, the name of our webcast today is obviously contract management, but in particular about the integration of all that. So contract management is an important and an integral part of the source-to-pay system landscape. And we know that if the contract management automation, if this really is well executed, enables to the efficiency and an effectiveness of the end-to-end process. And I was just referring in the previous slide about the risks that you might see and the opportunities that are missed. Indeed, contract management might enable all the process from the strategic piece to the procurement or the more purchasing, processing activity and the payment. And I just highlighted in the slide some of them, from the identifying opportunities to develop the contract piece, and to after that making sure that it complies to those suppliers, to those contracts that were put in place, and we are really getting what we agreed that we were going to get. And even at the payment side, enabling us to process in a more efficient way. So definitely the contract management piece is one of the areas that is right in the middle, and integration is important because it enables benefits across the end-to-end process. So world-class organizations, I mentioned before, and I talked to you about what those world-class organizations are in terms of the methodology that we have in order to identify them. We select them based on performance. So a world-class organization is not one that has a particular system or a particular practice in place, or it is the one that is able to perform at the top level in efficiency and effectiveness. Now, what we do is we look at those organizations and say, okay, what is what they are doing? So the other way around, let us understand what those top performer organizations are doing. So you see some of the graphs here. The non-world class is the median of the rest, the ones that didn't manage world class. And what you see is the percent of transactions in the left-hand side, the percent of transactions processed in online tools. And you see that world class is really moving away for doing that. You see, 0% non, while the non-world class is almost 40% of the organizations. And so this is a journey, and our data, it comes from real companies, so it's not 100 for everything in the world class. So even world class organizations have a way to go in this area, but definitely understand that this is the way to address some of the issues that they have. And if you see contract information viewed at enterprise-wide, we see that 75% of the organizations, they already have it. And it is a gap between getting to 100, even for the most advanced. If you compare it to the median of the rest, we're talking about even less than 50%. So it is an area that I think is widely understood, and everybody sees the symptoms and potentially faces the issues. It might not have been in the focus in the past years, or I could say that is clearly in trend to say, well, let's move on with this because organizations are seeing the value on it. And this takes me to part of the benefit. You see, we make a lot of research and talk to organizations, and contract management seems one of the solutions that create value, and organizations that are in that journey agree and accept that is the case and recognize and get the benefits. And you see some of the benefits that we hear from organizations in terms of clearly cycle times reduction, maintenance costs from the contract master, decreased contract errors, and you can go on and on through the entire list. Minimize cost of legal services, increase consistency across contracts, and the standardization topic, which is massive. So the benefits are there. Organizations in general are clear on that, and therefore they are looking into apply some of the solutions. Now the question is whether is technology and well, most probably you already know that the answer is not only technology. Technology is a great enabler, and we're talking about the automation and things that can be enabled by technology, but it's not the only issue, and it's not the only solution. It's not the unique component of it. A contract management project should not be focused on this is a technology project, if you will. If you see the top challenges that we study on this in terms of what are the most the areas and more recurrent areas that companies are facing when they are trying to implement and improve the outcomes of contract management. Well, the number one is complexity of operating across multiple business units in countries, and particular for large organizations, this is an issue, but it has to do with standardization, which is quite critical. And the second one is clarity of ownership and responsibilities across processes, so and management buy-in, etc. And the list is longer, obviously, but these are the top three more recurrent ones that we hear. So what I'm saying is, yes, good technology is very important, but there are some other areas that need to be put in place, that need to be considered in order to address and get the full benefits. And I'm just picking three of the different areas. From a governance and organization point of view, I guess the most important is really having, and some of the best practices in this is having, making sure that you define the governance around that and the roles and responsibilities, who is doing what, who needs to be engaged at what stage, and having a clear definition around the governance and the roles and responsibilities across the entire life cycle that I was talking to you, whatever the details that you're including in life cycle is very important. And you will, by doing this, you are able to understand much better and be more efficient in terms of what type of parties or stakeholders need to be involved in each of the different areas. So definitely it is a lot about governance and organization that needs to be put in place in order to make really a success and get the full benefits out of that. Now, let me go to the service design. And you will recognize a lot of things around processes within the service design. But what we have seen is that more and more the procurement function of the source to pay end-to-end processes providing services to the business. So it's not I create my own processes and I push those to you and you need to deal with them and work with them. It's around the services that we provide. So when organizations are designing the service, and clearly process is part of the service, there are very important points to look at. Staff contract management processes company-wide. Definitely you need to localize some things, in particular with regulation is requiring this. But having that is very important. So you can have the best technology put in place around contract management, but if you still need to go through standardization of a number of processes, the way you're going to go about the contract management life cycle. So very important to this. Now, it is here coming back to the point about the integration, which is absolutely critical for getting the entire benefits out of a contract management solution. And again, when I say so, I'm not referring only to the technology, or rather the entire solution of improving contract management. And it has to be a close integration with all other areas. Things such as, starting from your master data, the master file, and the catalogs, needs to be linked to the budget and the contract limits that you have, needs to be linked to your sourcing, so that is automatically populating, for example, requests for proposals or quotations, etc. So it is fundamental, the entire piece around integration to all other areas. And here the technology piece can help and should help, but it's also about how you are creating a full solution for managing contracts. And also one that is very important, corrective action plans that are in place for non-compliance activities. So remember that we are doing all this not only to increase our cycle times and be more efficient, it's also about the opportunities that you're able to see. And there are many things that can be done in terms of what is compliance and what fails after we have this great solution in place, so that you're able to get the benefits out. Now let's go to the last one. It's about the central contract management tool is shared company-wide. I think most of the key characteristics are covered. Workflow, clauses and terms, contract milestones, compliance, violations, all those type of things are important. And what I was saying before, the integration between the contract database and the repository and the procure to pay. So it's not only to create one repository with all the contracts that we can see, it's about what we can do with that in addition to making the process more efficient. Some of the nice things that technology can help with is obviously connect, maintain, retain, and report. The reporting is very important to be able to identify opportunities, to be able to identify clearly the compliance issues internally, but also externally that might help to improve the entire really source to pay process. So as you can imagine, there are many more best practices. I just select some of them, and each of them we can spend an hour at least into how this works and how it's implemented, etc. But still, I wanted to touch on some of the important points around the practices, and say it's more than a technology project. It's technology is definitely the enabler. Now, contract management excellence factors. And before I close, I just wanted to share with you some of the ones that I've seen that companies that have been successful, and they are in the journey but have been successful, are recognized as areas to consider. The first one, you might not think about this, but probably if you are already considering engaging in this, or you are going through the process, listen to the voice of the customer is very important. This shouldn't be a project that procurement or IT is doing on its own, and they have a clear objective of automating the process as such. It is very important to look at the voice of the customer. So what the internal stakeholders of the entire end-to-end process are looking for in order to enable them to process. And it is very important to create a project that is going to deliver what the customers, in this case the procurement, but also the other parties, legal, even suppliers, are looking for from a contract management. Design an end-to-end process. Avoid just picking one of the silos of this contract life cycle, or the first to settle or first to pay process. Try to cover the end-to-end process and be very clear around who should be doing what, when is the time. This is one of the very common problems that companies face with that. So many people involved nobody really knows who's supposed to be doing what. So it's a great opportunity to create, as I was saying, the right governance and putting the accountability. Considering easy-to-use interfaces, workflow automation, integration is key. And I think I don't need to go further on that one. And that one is don't overlook the people element. Contract management involves a lot of people, your own people, and some cases from legal, from external companies, might be also legal advisors, but you might obviously you have suppliers. So the people element is important. Understand what create training targeted for the roles that you are putting in place. Please don't overlook this, because at the end of the day, it's supposed to be a solution that enables the people to run around contract management and getting the full value of the entire life cycle of the contract. Okay, with that, I think we are getting closer to the end, so let us just move on very briefly to questions.
Thank you, Melanie, for an insightful presentation. We've got a couple of questions. The first question is, what type of activities should we undertake around people?
Yes, I think that was in my last point in terms of the people thing. Companies that have been very successful, they look at the training curriculum that they have, and they need to be really designed, aligned to the new roles that you are putting in place. So it's kind of a tailored program. It should be part of the equation that you create in terms of the system, the process, and the people that are going to be doing that. So there are going to be some of the good results that we have seen is, for example, creating a network community, people that work around that, around the contract management and the contract management role, in case you have decide to go for one, to create a community and help them to interact throughout the project, but obviously afterwards. I think there's much that can be learned. So training and community and networks would be a good, good way to start with.
Thank you. And the second question is it important to have a dedicated team for contract management?
We see a lot happening, and I haven't included this in the slides, but we have done some correlations with the data that we have, and we actually see that there is a good value in doing this. Now, when you, it's always the case, when you look at how to organize a particular area, one thing is the best practice, and definitely we see that organizations that are doing this are getting great benefits, because not everyone, they are able to focus their activities and channel them through a team. So yes, now if you ask me, everyone should have one. I think we would need to discuss about the specifics, but in principle, many organizations are going for that, having really great results.
Great.
Okay.
So these are the only questions that we had, and if you have any questions, feel free to write to marketing@zycus.com or knowledge@zycus.com, and we'll share it with Melanie, and we'll have the answers emailed across to you. We thank you for your time today. Hope the webinar was insightful, and you have a great day ahead. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.